You hear it? I can see the squiggles over here on my end.
Wait, you can see the squiggles on your end. What's wrong with your end, Doc? Do we need to see a doctor? Is that what they call it in the States now, the squiggles? Or is that a new band?
Yeah, it's for...
Is that the Wiggles cousin? Squiggles?
Wiggles are for kids. The squiggles are for adults.
You think we should start the episode?
Yeah, I think we should start the episode.
And Doc, stop twerking. We don't need to see that.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for this episode of Cinema Craptaculus Presents The Expanded Universe with your hosts, John H. Ford, Mario Doc Diaz, and Smoore. From movies to TV series to toys to comics to pop culture, this show is your safe space for all things geeky and where you can get your geek on. This is John H., and with me as always are my geektacular co-hosts.
This is Doc.
And Smoore!
Well, so here we are in November. I can't believe it's the end of the year. A lot of people would say that we're approaching the holidays, but I like to say that we're already in the holidays because, Halloween was last month. I'm kind of going through withdrawals, but part of that withdrawals is I've been thinking about, since we love movies, villains, the bad guys. And so the guys and I, we just have been talking about that. So I guess, today's podcast, we're going to be talking about best movie villains of all time. We're going to break it down into different categories. And Sean, you want to start with the first category?
And don't forget, this is also where we're going to vote on them. So the outcome of this episode is we at Cinema Craptaculus Presents The Expanded Universe will determine who the greatest film villain is of all time.
Who will win?
We will bring on the bad guys. Villainy, evil. We have 16 categories, and we're going to vote on each one. Starting with number 1, the Mastermind.
The Mastermind.
A mastermind is the ultimate villain, always multiple steps against the hero. He's the evil genius who usually appears towards the end of the story and has orchestrated everything the heroes have had to overcome. Even a previous victory for the hero will play into the mastermind's plans.
I'm going to throw out Ernst Stavros Bloefeldt.
James Bond, allow me to introduce myself. I am Ernst Stavro Bloefeldt. They told me you were assassinated in Hong Kong.
Yes, this is my second life.
You only live twice, Mr. Bond.
Spectre, leader of a Spectre. Yeah, you can't go wrong with Bloefeldt. Yeah, to me anyway, he's kind of like the ultimate mastermind. In the shadows, operating in the shadows. We didn't see him right away. They kind of hinted toward him, and eventually they had the reveal in whatever James Bond movie he first appeared in.
Well, it's funny because we just discussed James Bond in the Daniel Craig episode last month, and we were critiquing the films of the Daniel Craig era that we liked, didn't like, and everybody was bagging on Spectre, but Smoore, she's right about one thing. You can't hate Spectre simply because, A, they brought back Spectre, and even as clumsily as they handled it, they brought back Blofeld. So just the character Blofeld, even if they fuck it up in its execution, is that popular, then I think it shows like he stood for 6 decades and was parodied as Dr. Evil. So if you're that popular, you've been around 6 decades, and you've been parodied to a point where people only know the character through the parody, then I think you've done pretty well as a master villain.
And John, you got to admit, Blofeld set the mold. When you think about evil masterminds, especially when it comes to the spy genre or heroes who have to save the world, Blofeld is the archetype. But knowing that Blofeld is the archetype, my vote, however, would be for the Emperor. Yes, the Emperor from Star Wars.
Star Wars, Sean?
I know.
Star Wars more?
People who know me, I know I have a grudge against Star Wars, but look, I have to give Star Wars its props to their main villain, because if you think about all 9 canon movies, the one figure who has plotted behind the scenes for the entire time for centuries is Darth Sidious, the Emperor. That's my vote.
Go for Palpatine. Yeah, those are both really, really good because, like John Ford said, Blofeld is the archetype for the evil mastermind, but a lot of Star Wars fans, a lot of mainstream fans in general would argue that the Emperor, who orchestrated the rise of the Empire and fell and then somehow came back recently, people would say that, he does have unlimited power.
As Mastermind, I think we've gotten 2 great examples Another one I'd have to say has got to be Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker. Hans Gruber from Die Hard.
Still the cowboy, Mr. McLean, Americans all alike. Well, this time John Wayne does not walk off into the sunset with Grace Kelly.
Because he is the mastermind of, like, one of the greatest heists that doesn't, go off. So in a way, he's a failure. But up until the point where it fails, it's pretty much a brilliant plan. And he dresses very stylishly, wears the same suits.
True, props.
Wears the same
Very
suits
true.
as Arafat. He graduates from master villain to kidnapper. Right? Isn't that what Mrs. McLean says? I've just graduated from, from thief to kidnapper, so I suggest you, whatever, be nice. And he also can do an American accent. Oh, could do it, Doc.
Can he, though?
Oh, gosh, you're one of them.
And of course, he's played by the late, great Alan Rickman. So that's
Rest in
definitely a
peace.
plus there. But on the other hand, he only had one outing.
But what an outing that was. I mean,
Yes.
dude, stylish suit, brilliant plan until this cowboy motherfucker ruined it.
All right. Well, real quick, going back to evil organizations, the Cobra Commander. Sean Moore.
Good one. That's a good one.
Yeah, it has to be up there with Spectre. It's Cobra. It's an organization that operates all over the world. They have colorful characters, henchmen that he pretty much rules over. And I'm talking more the comic book version. I know if anyone grew up in the 80s watching G.I. Joe, the animated series, that Cobra Commander was very, very different, a little bit more sniveling. But comic book version was pretty badass. He was up there.
Right.
As one of the kids.
And he does have a movie version, right, which qualifies him for this category. The first movie, we're not going to talk about that because it just didn't work. The Rise of Cobra, however, I think they did a better job of representing the true Cobra Commander.
The time has come for the Cobra to rise up and reveal himself.
You will call me Commander.
That's
Speaking
true.
of comics, is there a master villain from the world of comics we could throw into this list before we vote?
Absolutely. They call him Ra's al Ghul, the Demon's Head, enemy of the Dark Knight detective Batman. Now, if you guys remember the 2005 movie Batman Begins, Ra's al Ghul was played by Mr. Liam Neeson. And I would have to say that portrayal was very understated because they sort of pulled a switch on us. We didn't know that he was Ra's al Ghul until the end, essentially. Mm-hmm. But he fulfilled sort of the tenets of master villain. He plotted the downfall of several, or at least we're led to believe that he plotted the downfall of several civilizations over time. And he was about to plot the downfall of Gotham City. And this dude trained the Batman.
You burn down my house, I burn down yours. Consider us even.
Right, exactly.
Boy, that's a good list. We should probably, if we're going to do this, we're going to probably have to vote on each one, which means we got to be mercilessly quick. So
Let's go for it.
That's a handful. You got them all written down somewhere?
Yep.
Got him here.
All right. So wait, should we each vote for two? It's gonna be a silent vote, so the audience won't know till the end.
Okay.
Do we vote for two or one from the category?
Let's vote for one because
right.
I have a feeling this category might, two of the candidates might get a lot of the votes.
Oh, okay.
All right. So all for Bloefeldt.
It's a silent vote. They're perfect for podcasting.
Right? How about the Emperor?
Are we only voting for one?
Yeah, we true.
Yeah. Okay, vote's over.
Vote's over. Bloefeldt wins, yes.
Bloefeldt, yes. Stop hell, Bloefeldt.
We should think this through a little bit more next time. That's okay. We're all good.
Wait, what if we each voted for two? Because I don't think we're all going to vote for the two.
Okay.
And that'll be a little more democratic.
Vote for a second one.
All
Who's
right.
next?
The Emperor, Cobra Commander, Ra's al Ghul, Hans Gruber. Okay. Looks like we have our two. Do we reveal who our two are right now, or do we wait?
We'll wait to the end, and then we're going to do a blowout round of all the Miss America finalists for Miss Universe. Oh, I'm sorry. What are we judging?
Villains! Villainy!
Villains. Sorry.
Man, after Sean Moore's presentation of the first category, I don't think I can it's going to be tough following that. Number 2 is the Henchman, Hired Gun.
The Henchman.
The henchman is the one that works for either the mastermind or the overall major baddie of the film. They are often the most skilled and most lethal and the most ruthless of villains. They exist to do nothing but the bidding of their boss. They prevail in the action and spy thriller genres especially.
All right. Should we throw out our candidates? Because I'm going to go right off the bat. Odd Job, Goldfinger.
Good one.
Odd Job. Yeah.
That's
Silent,
good.
deadly. Had this, again, nice suit, deadly bowler hat that can take your head off. Very loyal. That's what you need in your number one henchman. Loyalty.
And you also want someone silent but deadly. Doesn't suck all the oxygen out of the room. And, he didn't speak. So
you want to fart?
And,
Silent but deadly?
he was very much. Sneaks up behind you, you pass out from the smell. No. Harold Cicada was an Olympic wrestler from Korea. And he also was the proto-Bond henchman. I mean, there would be no Jaws. There would be no Zunya Onatop if it weren't for Odd Job. So I think he, not only was he great just on his own in the movie, but he created, much like Bloefeldt, the template.
Yeah. His look is very, very iconic. We've seen other characters show up that have very much the same look.
Random task.
Yeah, the side. Random task.
I mean, who throws a shoe at someone? I mean, really?
Random task. Okay.
I'd like to throw one out because, Odd Job was very loyal, but I can't think of any more loyal henchman than Mr. Joshua from Lethal Weapon.
Well, our problem, and yours too, is we have a shipment of merchandise to deliver.
Why don't you guys just call it heroin?
It's rather large, the shipment. It would be unfortunate, however, if we showed up to deliver our heroin and we're surrounded by 50 cops.
That would be too bad.
Yes, it would be.
Oh.
I remember seeing that movie, and it was just a great film. And people don't think that there's memorable villains from that movie. I completely disagree, because Gary Busey had not played a role like that. He played Buddy Holly, and he's got this bleached hair, and he's a mercenary, but you don't really, these guys can be so just sort of generic. But right out of the gate, he shows his loyalty to his boss, General McAllister, because they're doing a drug deal with some guy. And he's like, "You're using mercenaries, for crying out loud." He's like, "My men are loyal to me." Bullshit. Do you smoke? Remember that scene?
Yep.
And then he's like, Mr. Joshua rolls his sleeve up and he makes the guy light his lighter on Mr. Joshua's arm. He gets a 3rd-degree burn and will not, like a trained Doberman pinscher, will not move until his boss tells him to stop.
You guys are out there like fucking Pluto, man. You're gone.
The bulk of the heroin will be here Friday night. We'll make delivery at that time. Have the money ready and no tricks. If you try anything, you'll have to talk to Mr. Joshua.
That's loyalty. And he's a really good badass when he fights Riggs at the end. Puts up a pretty good fight.
True. But yeah. I gotta ask, though, what kind of benefits was this dude getting paid? Seriously. Take the cigarette burn?
Yeah. Yeah, and he just says go to Endo to have him look at it. What's Endo going to do? He's going to say, "Oh, you've got a 3rd-degree burn. You need to go to the hospital. You need skin grafts."
I'm sure they have good medical. It's covered.
Yeah. I mean, medical, dental.
He needed the dental.
He needed the dental.
Busey's teeth. Yeah, I don't know what those things were. They're like, Joshua did freak me out. Like watching the movie, he just seemed off. And you said that he really didn't do roles like that before that. I thought he did. Well, speaking of mercenaries or hired help, I'm going to throw in Boba Fett from The Empire Strikes Back.
You're being put into carbon freeze.
What if he doesn't survive? He's worth a lot to me.
The Empire will compensate you if he dies. Put him in.
Originally from the Star Wars Christmas special, but
That's right.
Got to throw in Boba Fett. I know a lot of people, years back would have argued, because some people say Boba Fett's a little overhyped. Like I said, he showed up animated in the Star Wars Christmas special, and then had, I don't know how many minutes he had in The Empire Strikes Back, and then unfortunately in the opening scene of Jedi, Boba Fett where? And then that was the end of it. Exactly. We're all thinking, where? No more Boba Fett. But in that little time, he left that much of an impact. And since then, they've written so many stories, and the character was so popular, just his look and the idea of him, that they've been able to continue his legacy in books, comic books. And then, of course, we got The Mandalorian, where they slowly eased him back in. And then we're all looking forward to the book of Boba Fett.
Let me ask you guys this. Does he deserve to be in this group because he is a really good henchman hired gun, like in the previous examples? Or is it because he's just made such an indelible impression and has this sort of lasting staying power? Kind of like Odd Job, I suppose.
Well, okay. I used to be one of those guys that bagged on Boba Fett. I never understood why people thought he was cool because
You were a Boba bagger.
Yeah. Empire Strikes Back. He shows up. Okay, I'll get Han Solo. And then at the end, yeah, I'm taking it back to Jabba. And that was it. And I'm like, he did nothing.
He just carted around in a floating ice cube.
5 minutes in return, he gets eaten by a sand vagina. How's this dude cool?
Sandgina.
I'm like, really? But then The Mandalorian came out, and they actually made Boba Fett cool. So now I'm on board. I get it now. They made him cool. But back then, I would agree with you. No, he doesn't belong in this list. Now he does. They made him cooler.
Dave Filoni. We got to give it to him.
Props. I think a character who does sort of fulfill the cool is Agent Smith from The Matrix.
There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus. Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague, and we are the cure.
And yeah, technically speaking, the first film, he was the antagonist, but he was working for the Matrix, right? This guy was, you take the best parts of the Terminator and put him in a virtual simulation. You got Agent Smith, played by the indelible Hugo Weaving. The way he portrayed his motivation, his voice, and how he's just unrelenting. I think that dude deserves top honors for Henchman. He's a perfect henchman.
He's a good selection because I remember seeing it, and I had not seen Hugo Weaving in anything else. I didn't see Priscilla in any of the Australian stuff. And he just seems so, he wasn't this name, there might have been other more famous Hollywood people they would have chosen for that, but he was just sort of interesting looking. And then the way he spoke, one of these has a future, the other one does not. What he was doing was sort of playing a humanoid program, a robot. And you don't know that until later, that he's not real, that he's a program.
Right.
But he brilliantly creates a character that isn't quite human. Something's off, but you're not thinking he's a robot. You just think it's what's going on. And they made him almost a little too broad a villain in the sequels. But just that first movie, I agree. And he is, you're right, he is a henchman. He just works for the Master Control, whatever the hell it's called.
When we're thinking about who we're going to vote for, I just wanted to bring up two things about Agent Smith. In the third movie, says later he's working on his own. So he goes rogue. So he kind of steps out of being the henchman, right?
And so does Boba Fett. Boba Fett's, he's a henchman in the first two, but ultimately his arc is he doesn't work for anybody.
Yeah, well, he's a henchman for Vader, then he's a henchman for Jabba, so whoever. He's a bounty hunter, so he gets paid. And then with Smith as a henchman, technically he can go into one of our later categories, right?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. Do we have any R-rated henchmen?
Clarence Boddicker. I'd buy that for $1. Wait, did he say that? He didn't say that.
No.
Damn it.
He said, "Can you fly, Bobby?"
Oh, yes. Love that line.
Oh,
Love that
man.
line.
Yeah. And who would have thought that he would be the dad on that 70s show and be kind of a beloved, warm, fuzzy, curmudgeon-y character? The RoboCop, everybody's a bad guy in that movie as far as, except for me.
Everyone's terrible. Everyone's a douchebag, terrible.
It's just, but he's a guy that when he gets his, you really want him to feel it. And boy, Paul Verhoeven, he gets skewered and, it's a good death. But
does he get mutated and then cut in half?
No, you're thinking of one of his henchmen. His guy gets covered in the toxic waste, but he runs over him and explodes him. Yeah, it blows him up. It's a good one on YouTube if you want to just quickly watch one of the grossest scenes. Type in "Toxic Man," RoboCop. Clarence Boddicker represents everything that our culture could just do wrong and create. I mean, he's not just a drug dealer, but he's a sadist. He's a nihilist. He's funny and kind of charming in his awfulness.
Right.
He really is just kind of I watched that. He just creeped me out.
Yeah.
Bitches leave.
Yeah, and his character has not aged too well in the Me Too era.
No. But he's a villain, so maybe he shouldn't age too well. He's a bad guy.
He's supposed to be that way.
Okay.
All right, so should we vote?
Let's vote. All right.
Well,
going down the list. Go ahead.
Really quick. I know
Yes.
Ford mentioned Odd Job, because James Bond, but surprised you didn't mention Jaws. He had the 2 appearances. He's a henchman.
But Oddjob was the first. So, I mean, you could put Jaws. Is Jaws better than Oddjob? Well, there'd be no Jaws if Oddjob didn't ever exist. But I think Oddjob is still very indelible. And yeah, I could have said Jaws. Didn't.
Okay.
All right.
I think Oddjob's more stylish, though. He had a badass suit.
All right. Shall we vote?
Let's vote. All right. So we have all for Boba Fett. All right. Agent Smith, Mr. Joshua, Clarence Boddicker, and Oddjob.
Okay, we have a winner.
We do. We're gonna reveal these at the end, right?
We are.
Yeah.
All right. We're gonna have to chop through this. I didn't realize how many we had. Number 3 is The Machine. The Machine. Devoid of human emotions, these bad guys can't be negotiated with or seasoned with and have a single-minded focus, killing whatever's in their way. Like the beast, they lack regret and remorse. What really elevates the machine is its ability to think critically, as they usually have human intelligence or greater. Typically, these killing machines are just that. So we've got robots and we've got human robots, or, unstoppable forces. So
Humobots.
Well, I'm going to just throw out the Terminator, T-800. Are we counting the T-1000 or, is it Arnold or is it also Robert Patrick and
I think they're different enough. The characters are very different. It's like a newer model, but I would say the T-800 is Arnold and then T-1000 is a totally different type of Terminator.
Okay.
I just think, Arnold, it is beyond pop culture. I mean, just the phrases that he came up with, I'll be back, and hasta la vista, baby. You can probably go anywhere in the world and say, I'll be back in English, and people will get what that is. It's like saying, the force be with you. And so I think visually he was just, God, Arnold with the glasses and the shirt off, and he's playing with his eyeball and all of that.
Specimen.
And his blasted face.
Yeah. Specimen, yeah. I'll pump you up, yeah. Let's go, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the Terminator as well. It's iconic. Just the design, the endoskeleton. Schwarzenegger looked awesome because the physique, bodybuilder. But then when all that is removed, you get the endoskeleton underneath. It's an unstoppable killing machine, and it won't stop until it completes its mission. And yeah, the studios won't stop making the movies, so because they know how much people love the Terminator. They love the franchise, they love Arnold, but it's just the concept that James Cameron came up with and the look. It's the movie machine, killing machine.
And if we are saying the Terminator, then I do think we need to just throw in a shade of Robert Patrick, because he did something very interesting, that he created this sort of animal-like creature that, could mimic. But when he was in his regular Robert Patrick cop form, it was such a great contrast, because he's not a big guy. They purposely went with someone who doesn't look like this intimidating Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilder, but he just had this look in his eye and his movements, and he was scary. He was great foil to Arnold.
Right, and he was literally and figuratively fluid. He could literally change his shape. And I think when they put him in the police costume, they created this sort of terrifying dichotomy, because he's dressed like a cop that's supposed to protect you, but in reality, he's out to kill you, right? Which has some connotations even today, if you want to think about it. But,
I don't know if Cameron was really aware of the optics in 1991. I think he might have been.
Maybe.
Also, I think it's also convenient because once he's in cop form, he can kind of go anywhere. It gives him a lot of latitude that if he just was like in a Dunkin' Donuts employee uniform.
Can you imagine that?
Yeah, he could be. You know what? If he was an Amazon driver now, hey, Amazon, your flat 2, the guy's not home. Can I leave this with you? Yeah, I'll buzz you in. Not bad. Terminator would be an Amazon cop.
Yeah,
well,
it's like Schwarzenegger's Terminator shows up anywhere, and like people are looking at him. He looks suspicious. It's like this guy is looking for trouble. Yeah. But yeah, Robert Patrick's T-1000, he can go anywhere. Like just as the cop, he's thin framed. When people see cops, they tend to, not everyone, but some people tend to welcome them. So yeah, very different. He had that advantage.
Hey there, we'll be right back. And now back to the show. Damn, the Terminator's hogging up this category.
I know. I was going to say, as scary as the Terminator is, I think one of the most terrifying examples of AI was Unleashed to the World by Stanley Kubrick. HAL.
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it. I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
HAL is terrifying because HAL could happen. HAL is Alexa gone wrong. HAL is like your automatic car turning on you. a computer system designed to help humanity that decides, you know what, I'm going to help humanity because humanity is too stupid to help themselves. So I'm going to take over whether you like it or not. That was frightening. And his voice was just very, I'm sorry, Dave. I can't do that.
It's funny that he's on the list because my son is actually reading Arthur C. Clarke's 2001: A Space Odyssey. And you have to really give Arthur C. Clarke credit for predicting, AI. And, we had seen the computer had been a voice on Star Trek and numerous sci-fi shows. But what Stanley Kubrick did was he didn't make it sound like this is the voice of the computer. What AI always tries to do. And I hate it in movies when they have a robotic voice, And Kubrick was way ahead of his time by just coming up with a regular voice, a pleasant sounding person.
Right.
Because they figured we can create a computer that sounds like a human. It doesn't have to sound like, Rosie the robot. And you're right. I think his normalcy is what was terrifying.
Right.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Right.
Or it didn't sound like Irona. Oh, Richie.
That's a good Irona.
Yeah, Hal was very, very calm, very soothing, but just very unsettling.
It's all about control. And these unstoppable, in control, if you can reason with the killer, then you have some control. If you cannot reason with the killer, you have no control.
Right. It's game over, man.
Which I think, would describe a few others, maybe.
Okay, how about Ultron? Can you reason with Ultron?
What's scary is you can, but he'll convince you otherwise.
Yeah, you can reason with him because it's AI, but he'll definitely put up a fight. He definitely has some opinions on humans.
And he's kind of sassy too.
Everyone creates the thing they dread. Men of peace create engines of war. Invaders create Avengers. People create smaller people. Children. I lost the word there. Children.
And did you guys like what they did? We're talking about cinematic villains. Did you like the cinematic Ultron, having read the comics?
A lot of people kind of bag on Age of Ultron, Avengers Age of Ultron, if you guys don't know what we're talking about. I liked Age of Ultron. My only gripe was that Ultron was a little bit too sassy because he had, who's the voice of Ultron again? I'm blanking on his name.
James Spader.
James Spader. James Spader is very James Spader. It's very sarcastic and, throwing out a little bit of humor. I know that AI was based on Tony Stark. It's like, I like my killing machines a little bit colder. That's my only complaint.
Honestly, like for me with Age of Ultron, they should have done more with him. Like he should have had a different plan. There's so many things that he could have done to shut down the planet, more than just throwing a rock at it,
But if we're carrying it over to Disney's Marvel's What If, then Ultron kind of gets his day.
That's true. Which was well done in my opinion. I liked it.
They basically took an Ultron that failed and said, what if he not only succeeded, but succeeded throughout the multiverse?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And did we feel like it was an Age of Ultron, more like a Day of Ultron?
It was. You could break it into a few hours with Ultron.
An afternoon with Ultron. Won't you be my neighbor?
Well, speaking of comics, there's another unstoppable robotic force in the world of comics, in the world of Marvel.
Sentinels! Right? Am I right? Sentinels?
Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Well,
I was thinking Sentinels.
Talk about like, there isn't even like, at least you can have a conversation with the T-800 or HAL. These guys, they don't even talk. They just come in and just want to kill you if you're mutant.
Well, here's why the Sentinels are probably the greatest X-Men villains out there next to Magneto. Depending on what you're reading, Magneto might be a herald to you, whatever. But it's the ultimate expression of human bigotry. Human beings program these robots to destroy mutants. And these robots are following their programming. The robots in of themselves aren't bad. They're doing what they're told to do. It's the human beings that put them together that makes them terrifying. They represent an ideology that's resonant for a lot of people. They represent hatred unchecked, bigotry unchecked. That's why they're terrifying. Because, again, you can see this happening. Yeah, I don't think someone's going to build a robot that kills specifically minorities or whatnot, but the policies invented by human beings to essentially oppress other human beings is what the Sentinels represent.
And they're freaking big, huge robots. Come on, you see those things coming down the street. You're gonna shit your pants.
So are we judging them on how well they were portrayed on screen or how good they are as a machine, as a villain in the scheme of things? So to Smoore's point about the Sentinels, they're terrifying, but they're also representing the hand of those putting them out there, whereas others on the list might just be terrifying unto themselves. We could throw in Agent Smith, because he's a machine.
That's true.
He kind of cross-pollinates, but I don't know, do we want to put him in, or we already had a chance to be voted on? Does he not belong in this group?
Well, let's answer that question by voting. Do we like the Terminator? Do we like Ultron? Do we like Hal? Do we like Agent Smith? Do we like the Sentinels? Okay.
All right, we're going to move on to our next category.
The unhinged or the crazies?
The unhinged or the crazy.
These are the guys who just do bad things because they can. They're depraved and forces of chaos with an unpredictability that makes them a tremendous threat. These villains rarely ever have grand plans to actually achieve anything. And when they do, it's just usually to hold a mirror up to society and reflect the madness in all of us. More often than not, the Disturbed show up in horror and thriller stories, with writers like Stephen King inventing a slew of iconic and deranged bad guys, highlighting their madness and devastated psyches. So I'm going to throw in my vote, and that would be for the greatest villain that DC's ever created. Nigh the greatest villain, perhaps, in all of villaindom, comic-wise. But we've seen him several times on film, played by Jack Nicholson, played by Heath Ledger, and unfortunately, played by Jared Leto. I'm talking about the Joker, the clown prince of crime, the harlequin of hate, the Joker, nutcase extraordinaire, and just a fantastic look. Again, he's wearing a suit. Guys, bad guys with suits are cool, guys. Seriously. He has a nice suit. What do you guys think?
Yeah, the Joker's a big one. Yeah, Joker's huge. He shows up on many lists. As you mentioned, the greatest villain of all time. He is the greatest villain from the DC universe, and has less to do with how powerful he is. Doesn't have special abilities, but just the characterization, the interaction with him and with Batman. Perfect foil for each other, and his look, his style, it's amazing. So the Joker should definitely be at the top of the list.
I'd like to throw Annie Wilkes from Stephen King's
Misery.
I can imagine what you might be thinking of me, but you see, Paul, it's all okay. Last night it came so clear. I realize you just need more time. Eventually you'll come to accept the idea of being here. Paul, do you know about the early days of the Kimberley diamond mines? Do you know what they did to the native workers who stole diamonds? Don't worry, they didn't kill them. That would be like junking a Mercedes just because it had a broken spring. No, if they caught them, they had to make sure they could go on working, but they also had to make sure they could never run away. The operation was called hobbling.
That's a good one.
That's a good one.
She's freaky.
And, Kathy Bates was not a famous film actress. She had a very established stage career and was respected in acting circles, but the public hadn't seen her before. And it was a very unflattering role, I think, in many ways for a woman to take. And but yet she wasn't just villainous. She was a real person. And I just thought, when the book, she's pretty horrific in the book. Like she does a lot worse to Paul than they do in the movie. But what she does in the movie is play sweet and disarming. And then when she turns, it's just, you just picture yourself in James Caan's situation, and it's terrifying. She did a really good job. She didn't play crazy. She played that she was in love with this guy. It was a delusion, but she played it real. And I think that's sort of like the brilliance of why she won an Oscar, is that she wasn't playing crazy. She kind of made you believe that this person could exist and had a point of view. She really loved this guy, and was determined to keep him.
You never go full crazy.
She loved him so much, she busted his feet with a sledgehammer. That's love.
It's called hobbling.
Oh, God damn it.
It freaked me out. The whole time I'm watching the movie, I'm just like, of course I knew what was coming, but just watching the movie and just anticipating it. And I was scared watching the movie, and just like you said, her performance was just subtle. She was sweet, and I knew it was coming. So, and then when that scene happened, the hobbling, I was just like holding my feet, so very, very good pick.
Very good pick. Very good pick.
Okay. I want to throw in the Green Goblin.
Join me. Imagine what we could accomplish together. What we could create. Or we could destroy.
cause the deaths of countless innocents in selfish battle again and again and again until we're both dead. Is that what you want? Think about it, hero!
You know, from Marvel, he's at the top of, well, some people would say he's at the top of Spider-Man's rogues gallery. The original history of the character from the comics, you know, which was carried over into the movies, you know, portrayed by Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe was great in the role, just how he would go back and forth between a more terrified Norman Osborn to, like, he would switch to an evil Green Goblin persona. He did a really great job with that. The fact that he knew Spider-Man's real identity and was a part of his life, and how Norman Osborn's son was friends with Peter Parker, and so all those connections just, you know, made for this like uneasy relationship between these two foes. And again, you know, his appearance, you know, he rode around on a goblin glider. He dressed in green and he had pointy ears and he was dressed like a goblin. So he would throw pumpkin bombs and he would be flying around shrieking, and it was pretty scary. And definitely looking forward to seeing him in Spider-Man No Way Home.
Smoore, go ahead and say the line. You like to say it.
Rumor fast, kid. Oh, I'm sorry, the other one. Back to formula.
Well, both of those, actually. Yeah, I personally, I think the costume was ridiculous, and I think it sadly kind of
Power Rangers.
Yeah, but I think what Dafoe did, and he did, and you got to credit him because he acted with the mask on. It wasn't like, you know, there was a stunt guy, you know, in a lot of those scenes. It was him, and I agree with you. He really did a great. He was the first true sort of villain of the Marvel Cinematic World. I mean, you know, Ian McKellen was, you know, Magneto before him, but he was kind of a sympathetic, you know, he had a cause. Whereas if we're going for just unhinged crazy, Willem Dafoe started it in 2002, and we've seen others since. But yeah, it was a very good performance. And you're right, he had to play a duality that when we bring up some of these other people like Annie Wilkes and the Joker, you know, they kind of have just their agenda, whereas he really is a split personality, so he has to play two characters. Which, you know, is there anybody else in that sort of playing two character split personality?
Yes, he's one of the OG villains. If you guys remember a little film called Psycho, we have Mr. Norman Bates.
What do you know about caring? Have you ever seen the inside of one of those places? The laughing and the tears, and the cruel eyes studying you. My mother there? But she's harmless. She's as harmless as one of those stuffed birds.
This is how crazy this dude is. You meet him, he seems like a really nice guy, very soft-spoken. Welcome to my motel. But secretly, he dresses up like his dead mother, and he stabs people in showers. What the F? He's nuts.
Well, his choice of vocation isn't exactly on sort of your standard list of people whose boyfriend you want to bring to dinner. And what do you do for a living, Norman? Well, I'm a taxidermist. I think right there's a red flag. Do you run a hotel? You own a hotel. Well, which chain? Well, it's just one hotel. Well, where is it? It's in the middle of nowhere if you're driving on Highway 13 or wherever. Ah, you're a taxidermist at a hotel that nobody stays at.
Yeah. Oh, I live on my dead mother's corpse. So, you know, just like to keep it in the family.
I think that's a great choice. I think, you know, you're right. And, you know, Psycho, I mean, look, we don't like to talk about crazy. And when we say, we're not trying to bash people with mental illness. We say we're using crazy in sort of film pejorative sense, which means, you know, the criminally unbalanced that's going to do a bad thing. And I know that, you know, it's harder to do that nowadays because I think people, and I don't mean that harder like, wow, we can't do those characters, meaning that we've learned a lot more about mental illness and we don't want to just portray people who have dual personalities as villains. But you have to admit that in filmdom, they can be very, very effective at terrifying an audience and the hero. And he isn't even a villain until the very end.
That's very
we
true.
don't know he's done anything wrong.
Yeah, until the reveal.
And that reveal was shocking to people. I mean, the whole film was shocking. But just, you know, what Anthony Perkins did, he was just so normal, aside from the job and the location.
Right. Which made for a great impact villain-wise, in my opinion. Okay, we should vote. So, going down the list, we have the Joker, we have the Green Goblin, we have Annie Wilkes, and we have Norman Bates. Okay.
Our next category is The Beast.
The Beast.
Like 666?
666, yes. The beast isn't filled with evil or hatred. Usually it's just hungry. Or maybe it's protecting itself or driven by instinct. But one thing's for sure, it will kill you in a second. Pretty much any story where an animal is the antagonist falls into this category, with the shark from Jaws, the whale from Moby Dick, among the most iconic examples. Of course, a beast doesn't even have to be a real animal. Fiction is filled with all kinds of fantastic monsters, large and small. Themes of man versus nature, pride, or science gone too far aren't uncommon when this kind of villain is present, and survival is the name of the game.
All right. John, we already know who you're going to use.
You do.
Hello, Brucey.
Come on, man. Jaws.
Jaws. Bruce the shark.
Jaws, man.
Bruce the
Jaws.
shark.
He doesn't talk. I can't do an impression. Well, what we are dealing with here is an eating machine, really a miracle of evolution. All right, I'm not going to do it. I think I just did that in the last podcast. You know what? You cannot go wrong with Jaws. But I'm going to argue against him because in reality, great white sharks are not these awful creatures. And that film did a big disservice to how great whites and sharks in general were treated. But in that movie, he is incredible. I mean, he is just, and wherever you go, he's got this music that plays with him. Did you know that? There's literally, he has a theme that follows with him. I mean, that is impressive. Whether he's underwater or popping out, you hear his music. How many villains have that? And whenever he loses a tooth, he grows a new one.
Well, this quote-unquote villain is so iconic that he has made generations of people afraid to go into the water.
Yeah.
Generations of people.
I'm one of them.
Same here. It's a good solid pick.
Well, in that vein, should we count the alien from Aliens?
The Xenomorphs.
Yes. The Xenomorphs. Just a mom trying to protect her kids, man. I mean, yeah, she'll puncture a hole in your chest and lay eggs in you and stuff starts bursting out. But, is that so wrong?
Well, I think cinematically he's up there, or it's up there, because, we don't really know that. We don't want to do pronouns with those things. It is up there with Jaws, because in the first one, or even in the second one, but the first one, it is a very terrifying creation. Just visually, the design of the alien was just incredible. The costume, the puppet, that second jaw that came out and would just go right into your skull. And really not shown that much, kind of like the shark. But when it did, it was pretty impactful. Especially if you were a kid, watching that on HBO late night.
Yeah, it creeped me out. Maybe afraid of aliens.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But for next candidate, I'm going to throw in the T-Rex from Jurassic Park. T-Rex has been a fan favorite of kids, adults, for years, even before the movies. And then after when Spielberg brought them to life, dinosaurs, we were just in our seats going, these things are real. Oh my gosh. It was just amazing, the effects that they created for that movie. And the T-Rex is like the king of the dinosaurs. Whenever people think of dinosaurs, you often think of T-Rex and their little arms.
Where's the impression?
You are going to have actual other beasts in your beast category, aren't you? No, I think that Spielberg, had a 1-2 punch with the Jaws shark. The difference is that with the shark, it was an existing creature. I think it made it a little more terrifying. The T-Rex is still kind of fantastic. And even though we've got the bones, we don't really know what they look like or how they behaved. They could have been timid creatures for all we know, really. But he, in the movie, he is terrifying and ultimately, exciting. And I think that's what we forget is like these guys also have to sort of like titillate the audience. Any chance I get to use the word titillate. And you're rooting for the T-Rex's return, and the film's kind of a little hollow without the T-Rex. And of course, they do this sort of absurd return at the end where he actually saves the heroes. But I think that if we're going to go with creatures, I was thinking of the Godzilla movies. And when I was a kid, I watched Godzilla versus the Smog Monster. Hydra, the Smog Monster, was a far scarier beast because he was created from pollution and man's waste, and he could change forms. When he'd fly overhead, his smog ass wake would just fry people, and he hurt Godzilla, and covered him with his little fart poo juice, and it was just a gross bad guy, and I love those movies. In fact, it is probably the most memorable one for me.
I'm sorry, I remember none of this. There was a smog monster.
You don't remember Godzilla versus the Smog Monster?
No. What the hell?
We've lost Smoore. Maybe we should keep it a little more recent. Let's to speed things up. Are there any other modern beasts?
No, I was gonna say I'm not opposed to the Smog Monster. I just didn't know it existed. What?
Yeah.
Oh.
It's a classic Godzilla villain.
He's on HBO Max. Watch it. It's in the original Japanese translation, and it's priceless. Very 70s. What about like the bugs from Starship Troopers? They're beasts. Anyone? No?
Yeah, those were good. The effects were good, for the time. Really enjoyed that movie. And yeah, it's like they're sending in these troops to fight them. And I'm like, what's the point? It's like everyone would like lose arms, legs, parts are just getting lopped off. But yeah, that's creepy. And when you see a wave of those things coming at you, it's like, it's over.
It's over.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we vote on these then? All right. We got the T-Rex. We got the Smog Monster. We have the bugs from Starship Troopers. We have the alien from Aliens, the Xenomorph. And we have Bruce the Shark from Jaws. Okay.
Hello. This is Jeff Goldblum, and it would appear that the expanded universe has left you, the audience, on what they call a cliffhanger. Yes, very very interesting, isn't it? A cliffhanger. They've left you in a lurch, and I imagine that they have a very very good reason for leaving you all in a lurch like this. Hey there, Expanded Universe fans. Mr. Goldblum might be right. We are leaving you on a cliffhanger, but we have a really good explanation as to why. Look, we had so many villain categories that we just couldn't do it in one episode. So we're going to have an upcoming Part 2 episode where we will finish our categories and voting, and then we will do a final vote of all the categories to determine who is the number one film villain of all time. So in that time, we want you guys to go on social media and follow us on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook @Craptaculus and let us know who you think your favorite film villains are. Hey, we were a little modern in some of our films. Well, modern as far as the last 50 years. Maybe you want to go back further. Maybe your film villains are old James Cagney movies. You never know. Or maybe you saw a recent movie, something really brand new, and you think that villain right now in 2021 should be the greatest villain of all time. Hey, who are we to judge? Let us know about it. So thank you for joining us on this expanded universe journey. And remember that this is your safe space for all things geeky and where you can get your geek on. Geek out! Hey, Craptaculars and Expanded Universe fans, the holidays are coming up, and what better gift for your friends and loved ones than giving them the gift of Cinema Craptaculus? Hey, it's free, and all you have to do is tell them to go to their favorite podcast platform and subscribe to Cinema Craptaculus. It's the gift that keeps on giving. With one subscription, Cinema Craptaculus provides you with a brand new show each week. There's the B-sides, the real debates, Terror Tunnel, the Expanded Universe, and of course, Cinema Craptaculus. We couldn't do these shows without you, our loyal listeners, so thank you for helping us grow Cinema Craptaculus into this amazing family of shows. And speaking of family, you better get busy. The holidays are just around the corner.